I didn't even see it coming.
Yeah.
We get to the last lap, the last turn on the straightaway, and he just throws the brakes on and lets Oscar go by so he can win the race.
What's going on, two-car guys? Welcome back. We're here to talk about Formula One, and we just hit 400 subs, baby. Let's go.
400. That's right.
400, man. That's awesome. Thank you, everyone that has made it this far into the channel. Welcome. It's going to be a great time. We're going to keep doing this, and we're going to keep having fun doing it at the same time.
We're super excited. I will say it's been very interesting to see how quickly we grew in just November alone.
Yeah.
And our next goal is 500. So if you're listening, hope you can be part of that.
Like, share, and subscribe.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So, John, we are here today, to talk about the Qatar race, right?
Yes.
And so much
happened.
So much happened.
So much happened.
And I don't think we were ready for any of it. And I can tell you right now, crazy things happened. Decisions that should have been made weren't made. And we're already starting to see news come out about repercussions for, the final race in Abu Dhabi, right? So
absolutely.
Let's start with the sprint race. So we get into sprint weekend, which I don't know. I think we've talked about this before. Are you a fan of sprint weekend?
I like sprint weekend. The most racing. I like more racing is better for me. I love it. I will say this one was kind of there wasn't a lot going on. I think they were all trying to just protect their car. The biggest thing, in the sprint race qualifying, Perez was out yet again, Q1.
I don't know what's going on with him, man. I really don't. I mean, he's having a heck of a time this year.
Yeah.
And, when he was with BWT, he looked like he was hungry and he was trying. And then you had the Mexican Minister of Defense, right? I mean, he is the reason. Let's be honest. He's the reason that Max won his first title.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is no doubt about that, right?
Yeah.
And then you get into last year, he was competing for a championship against Max, kind of,
Yeah.
And
at the start of the season, you thought for sure Checo had a really good run.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, this is what I'm talking about. That's the competitor we need in the second seat at Red Bull.
Yeah.
And
then this season, not only has he been out qualified by Max, he hasn't made it past Q1 in a lot of circumstances.
Right.
And in a few times, he hasn't even been in the points in the actual race.
A lot of times.
That's
he hasn't been in the
insane.
points. I think the last 6 races, he's been out in Q1, not in the points. And it's like he's just falling down. It's not going the right direction for him. And I feel
but I think Red Bull's in a tough spot, right? Because if you look at what happened with Gasly, if you look at what happened with Albon, right? They had very little time in that seat to prove themselves.
Yeah.
And I will argue that Gasly probably didn't have enough time, because as soon as he got kicked out of the seat, he started performing.
Oh, he was there with them.
Exactly.
It was wild.
And I think he just didn't have enough time to settle in.
Yeah. And maybe that's the case, but he also wasn't doing well under the pressure. And you could see that.
Yeah.
At one point, I think they were like, you've got to go. And he was like out of the race. I mean, like P0 at that point.
Right.
I mean, it was just bad. So,
it's just crazy, though. And then now you've got Perez in the seat. And I honestly think, you and I talked about this before the show, I honestly think that a lot of it is driven by his fan base. He's got a phenomenal fan base that really buy all his merch. And, he's doing all kinds of commercials and all kinds of stuff.
Well,
and I think Red Bull is kind of
money.
Well, that's what I'm saying. All that money's coming in from the support, right?
Right.
And all these sponsors that are coming in. I think Red Bull's in a tough spot because you can't get rid of him. Or maybe you can. I don't know. We'll see.
I'd like to think that they can do what they want.
I will tell you, every single race we watch, the commentary is, this person is after the second seat at Red Bull. This person is after a second seat at Red Bull, right?
Well, I'll say this: Lawson, he didn't look great today either.
Oh no, he didn't. He didn't look great today. But so let's stick with the sprint real quick, right?
Yeah.
So the sprint, you're right, was not exciting. Lando took off and was basically gone the whole time.
Yeah.
He built a really good lead, and he probably could have just checked out.
Yeah.
But he started coming back to keep Oscar in DRS range so he could stay away from from Russell, right?
Yeah.
And what was interesting about that was I didn't even see it coming.
Yeah.
We get to the last lap, the last turn on the straightaway, and he just throws the brakes on and lets Oscar go by so he can win the race.
Yeah, there's been a lot of weird things with McLaren lately that if they did not mess with it to start with, I think it would all worked out in the end.
Yeah.
But they meddled in the race, right? And now we're having the repercussions of, hey, you gave me this, so I'm going to give you that. And I don't think that's the way it should be. Personally.
Yeah, I think if you rewind and you go back to the race that they, had Lando give up the spot and
they pushed him to do it.
Yeah, and give it to Oscar. I think McLaren looking back knows that was a mistake.
Right.
Because that cost them the drivers' championship, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So we get into this race weekend.
Maybe.
Lando's in the driver's seat for second in the drivers' championship.
Yeah.
And McLaren, has a possibility or has potential to lock in the constructors' championship.
Right? Oh yeah, no, yeah, for sure.
They have the possibility or the ability, if you will, to lock in the constructors' championship. So we get into qualifying, and it was basically Max gets pole, Lando's down in the second row with Oscar, so you get a second row lockout.
Yep.
And then this video emerges of basically Russell going around on a lap, and Max just parking it in the corner.
Yeah,
and the thing was, Max was on a warm-up lap or on a prep lap,
outlap. Yeah, an outlap.
And Russell wasn't on his speed run, was he? He wasn't on his qualifying lap.
No, they were both on outlaps, and they were both. I guess they were trying to see who was going to go first, so you could get the toe. Is my understanding of it, maybe. And I think that's why he just kind of parked it, and then
literally just parked it. So then, of course, Russell said, "Oh, that's super dangerous," and apparently the FIA agreed with him.
Yeah.
So they knocked him down one place.
Right, and that's the first time I've ever seen a penalty like that.
Same, and I will tell you, I think it's the most ridiculous thing ever, because if you're going to penalize him, you didn't do a good job.
Right.
You put him basically on the inside corner.
Well, one thing to remember too is we do have a new leadership in the FIA. Is my understanding.
We do have new leadership in the FIA because he just took over recently, and what they were very quick to remind us on the F1 Sky Sports today was that he's not the one making those decisions. That all comes down to the stewards.
Right.
And the stewards are making those decisions, right? So so they penalized him one spot. I thought that was garbage, and it was a worthless penalty. Well, it was worthless.
Penalty. Yeah,
it was absolutely worthless.
Yeah. And another thing too is that Max did come out and say, "I will take that spot back before the end of the first lap." And
for sure. Well, he was pissed.
Sure did that. He was pissed. Yeah.
And so the race starts. George loses out to Max. He loses out to Lando.
Yep.
And I think he lost out to one of the Ferraris off the jump too, didn't he?
Right.
And then things just went haywire. So you got your first safety car, right? Because you had Stroll doing Stroll things.
Yeah, right? And Albon even said on the radio, he's like, "I knew he was going to do it. I just knew he was going to do it."
He said he's like, "I knew he was going to turn into me."
Come on,
right?
Man. Like,
but you had 3 cars involved in that incident.
Yes.
Right. And one of them was the Sauber.
Sauber.
Right. And he was able to go back and and fix his tire and come back out. Right.
Yeah.
And then you got was it Franco, Ocon, and Hulkenberg in the first one.
Correct.
Right. and
Albon and Stroll as well.
Yep,
because that was like part of that same situation.
Yeah, so it was just it was crazy, and it was kind of a. So you got the restart, and then it was kind of just a boring race, right?
Yeah, it started follow the leader, DRS train.
Yep. No, but and I mean, it was like Max was controlling the pace. We saw that basically the McLaren couldn't get past the Ferrari to get up in front, and really what they needed to do was have a McLaren 1-2 and a Ferrari like 4-5, I guess, to lock it out. Right.
Yeah.
And that was not going to happen. I mean, we saw it pretty much forever. Right.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden there's a collision.
Right.
And someone loses a mirror.
Yes. Or it was from the previous collision. I'm not sure.
It was definitely from another. From another collision. So somebody loses a mirror.
Yeah.
And it's on the start. It's on the straight. Right.
Yeah. And
like in front of the pit out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they kept commenting on it on the radio on how they probably need a safety car, that if somebody tries to go around, because that's a good place to overtake, if somebody tries to go around, they're going to hit that.
Yep.
And it's going to cause problems. Right.
Exactly.
And so before they hit it, we go double waves yellow.
Yeah.
And you have track workers at the ready to run out there and grab this mirror, right? And sure enough, someone hits it and blows it up.
Oh yeah, it's in
the pieces from it end up in Hamilton's tire, end up in Science's tire.
Yeah, and then that car that hit it said his car wasn't driving right as well. I'm trying to remember who it was. But yeah, the crazy part too is so all that could have been avoided.
It could have been avoided. It could have been avoided under a virtual safety car. Somebody run out and grab the mirror and come right back in.
Easy enough. Yeah.
But okay, so now you've taken down 2 cars. Well, as part of all 3, as part of that incident, Lando didn't come off the gas on the front straight, and I mean we heard it. I mean it was obvious, right? Yeah. Now there was questions whether it was double waved yellow or if it was a yellow, but it didn't matter. He was supposed to come off the gas during that start finish straight. Correct. But he closed the gap on Verstappen, and Verstappen, as usual, is the first one to get on the radio and be like, "Hey, he closed the gap on me. Check to make sure he slowed down." Right? I was like, seriously, dude.
Fair enough.
But you know what? I can't fault him. He was right. Yeah. Right. So I'm over here thinking, okay, this is cut and dry, black and white. He didn't slow down. And I'm thinking they're going to give him like a 5-second penalty.
5-second penalty.
He just needs to pull 5 seconds on, whoever's behind him, and he's
exactly
fine.
What I thought too. Yeah,
right.
Same thing. Yeah, that's what they've done in all previous races that I've ever watched.
All of them. And so then they come out with a 10-second penalty, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, that makes sense because it's
gap. Okay.
Well, no, because it's a safety issue.
Yeah, safety issue. Got it. Yeah, I agree. 10 seconds. Okay, cool. But then it was a stop and go. Note. Yes, that stop and go is not a 10-second penalty. That's a 38-second penalty.
Exactly.
That is a massive penalty.
You have to go into the pit. And it was funny because they were doing the commentating, right? And Crofty was saying that he has to serve that stop and go in the next 3 laps.
3 laps,
right?
Yep. You got 3 laps.
And Jensen Button was saying, "Oh no, he can pull a 10-second lead on him." And he's like, "No, he has to serve that penalty in the next 3 laps." He's like, no, he can get 10 seconds ahead. And it wasn't until until Jensen Button realized it was a stop and go.
Yeah,
he was like, "That's excessive. That's excessive. He won't be able to recover from that."
Abuse of power. And
he essentially went from second place to last place on the grid.
Yes, exactly. When he came out of the pits, he was last place,
dead last. He couldn't see any cars in front of him or behind him.
Yeah. And it's, to me, that I think that was very, very aggressive. It didn't match there was no danger at that point. There was no one on the track at the point where he had went excessively.
No.
I didn't think it was fair to Lando at all.
Yeah, the stop and go made no sense. And then
I didn't think it was
gets a drive-through penalty.
Either. Yeah, he got a drive-through penalty, which is also, odd penalties. I just
super weird.
I feel like they're opening up the old FIA book, and they're like, how bad can we make this race? And then they're just flipping pages, and they're like, oh, that'll do.
Yeah.
Really want to change it. And honestly, the only people that benefited from Lando's penalty was Ferrari as a team.
As a team.
And that's a massive amount of money difference. If you look at the constructors, who gets paid more.
Huge.
And I think Ferrari is pushing the FIA because they are the FIA, and maybe this is a conspiracy theory, whatever. But they're like, hey, we want that big paycheck. Can you make that happen? And Mr. Governor's like, absolutely.
Dude, it was absolutely huge. Man. And we learned real quick in that race that the medium tire was tired to be on. Because the softs were too soft.
Horrible.
The hards were too hard. And what was crazy was George Russell pitted at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Bottom line, right? Yep. He pitted before the safety car. He pitted at the wrong time. Yeah. And when he came in, they put him on hards. And he had to go on hards because you have to switch tire compounds.
Yeah.
Right? You have to run a different tire compound.
Yeah.
And so he comes back in for a second stop.
Yeah.
And they put hards on it again. Oh and he pulls out of the pit and he is on the radio hot.
I can't blame him.
He was like, why did you put these tires on my car again? And the only explanation that I could think of, and I think they said it on the broadcast as well, is he didn't have a pair of mediums that weren't scrubbed in already. He had a pair of used mediums.
Yeah, and maybe the soft was not going to make it to the end.
The softs had no chance. Wasn't it Joe Guanyu came out on the softs, or was it Valtteri Bottas came out on the softs? But they were garbage.
Joe finished in the points. Valtteri did not.
Yeah.
So I think
they came out originally on the softs.
I'm not sure. I don't quote me on that. I don't.
It was one of them. And then we see Russell get a 5-second penalty for a safety car infringement.
Yeah,
that made no sense.
They were throwing penalties at this race, and I do know that the last 2 races of the season are pretty penalty heavy. They always have been. These races specifically, and I don't know why. But they've always been that way. The last 4 races, or 4 years,
when they went through. Remember when they went through the pits and Lando locked up?
Yeah,
because. Hamilton forgot to put on his he forgot to put on his pit limiter.
Yeah. Yeah, he come in a little hot and he's like, "Oh, let me stop." And then Lando's like, "Oh, thanks for flat spotting my tires."
Well, good news is he wasn't going fast enough that it did a whole lot of damage to him.
Yeah.
But then you get Joe Guanyu in the points.
Yeah.
And I was just dumb. I was like, "How'd you end up here?"
Yeah.
They have been scoreless. They've been There's 24 races this year. Isn't that
pointless.
Right?
They've been pointless every race.
No points
up until now.
Yeah.
This was the first race
as
for
a
Joe
team.
to get in the points. Yeah.
As a team.
Well, they've been the worst car on the grid too.
Well, remember when they started off the season and they had 40-second pit stops.
Yeah. Well, that, and then also they came out like right whenever it first happened. They were like, our car's too heavy. We're not going to be competitive. Like, don't expect much from us this year. And they stood ground. That's exactly how it went.
They did awful.
They did exactly that. So
I mean, Gasly finished 5th, which was pretty impressive. But I'm telling you, this whole race weekend was just absolutely nuts. Yeah. And honestly, as soon as they gave Lando that penalty and he came out at the end, I was like, I'm out. Like, I'm done. This is just dumb. And it just the whole thing. But Lando came out and apologized to the team. Yeah, and he said, listen, that's on me. And if you look now, Ferrari is not as close to McLaren as as you would think, right? If McLaren finishes ahead of them in Abu Dhabi, they're fine, right? Yeah. However, I want to say, and I have to go back and look, I want to say Lando is like 8 points in front of Leclerc in the Drivers' Championship because of what happened today.
Yep.
That's insane.
That's unreal, man. I'm telling you.
And I never would have imagined that. I never would have even thought that.
Yeah.
If I hadn't if I hadn't seen it, because if you look back at earlier in the season, Lando looked dominant in a few of these races.
Absolutely. Lando and McLaren as a whole look dominant.
Yep. Let me ask you a question.
It's crazy to think that Ferrari's gotten that close with second and third place finishes.
Right. So let me ask you a question. Here's an interesting question. Did you notice the couple times that Lando was trying to overtake Max, and in fact, the first safety car restart, he had him. Yeah. He had him. And there were a couple times I thought Lando was gonna. In fact, the start of the race, Lando had a car length in front of him. Oh, half a car length in front of him.
Right? They switched up real quick in the start of the race, and Lando put his car right there. I was like,
I thought he was going to do it, but I think he saw that corner coming, and I think he knew that Verstappen was going to wait and hang out on the brakes and go wide if he had to go wide.
I mean, he would.
Lando was not about to do it. And
he would have risked the whole race.
Well, he put the brakes on. He put the brakes on and cut it up the inside, right?
Well, also, he was trying to switch up for the benefit for the next corner. And I think that's one thing that I think is, I got to give Max credit. He's really, really good at pre-planning 3 turns ahead. Yeah. Because he'll put himself in a position where it looks like the other driver is going to come ahead. And he's like, okay, you'll have it there. But when I come around this next corner, I'll be ahead. And he plans that perfectly. You don't see a lot of drivers that, I mean, obviously all the drivers do this, but you don't see a lot of drivers that successfully do this. Right?
No, I
Not
mean,
at the rate that Max is at least.
Everything about this weekend just was chaos theory.
Yes.
It
was like a lot of like, wow, we got 2 punctures. Like, we haven't had punctures all season, right?
No,
we got 2 punctures. We got just a lot of craziness that you didn't see coming. And then obviously the FIA doing their thing to make it that much more
think about it. It wasn't until Mexico that we actually saw Bird Mylander and the safety car, right?
That's right.
And there was jokes about how he'd gone missing and he was on the milk cartons and stuff like that, right?
On the milk cart.
And then you had him in Mexico. Yeah. Then obviously he was in Brazil. Crazy, all over Brazil, right?
I think he put more lap time down than anybody else.
He did, because he was running a bunch of the laps trying to see if the track was even drivable.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And then we didn't really see him in Vegas during the race, right? But then boom, out twice.
Yeah, and I'll say this was a good race. Unfortunately, I made most of it driving. I was driving home.
Well. You say that, but
I went back and watched it again, but it was a good race.
It was to an extent. The part that was kind of interesting was there was a lot of overtaking and battling down the line, but not a lot in the top 4 or 5.
Exactly. Yeah.
Once you got back to like Oscar couldn't get past Leclerc to save his life. You know?
And one thing I will say, the videography for this race, I don't know what it is, but they were not great.
Dude, you were all about the videography, dude.
I can't stand it when it happens.
It's like our 3rd episode in a row you brought that up.
Sorry, but yes. But either way, like when something big happens, hey, I want to know. I want to see it. And then like all of a sudden I see Lawson sliding backwards in the back of this camera, and I'm like, what happened?
How did that happen?
How did he get to this point where I see his car going backwards in the back of the camera and no one shows a video of it?
Well, we didn't talk about that, right? So RB looked terrible this weekend.
Yes.
And they double stacked a pit like close to the end.
Oh, horrible.
For what?
Yeah.
What was the point? What was your point? Why'd you do that?
They did a horrible job at it. Like, it wasn't even a good job. It was a bad job.
Speaking of bad pits, what about George's pit when he went to go pit the first time?
Yeah, dropped
he had like a 9-second pit stop.
Well, yeah, they said they went to put the car on the jack and it fell off. Oh my God. I'm like, dude, you got one job, man. One job, man. They're probably paying him a lot of money. Yeah.
No, that whole thing was crazy. And then
or maybe I think the one that fell off the stand was Hamilton. When he had the flat tire.
Oh yeah.
So I may have missed that pit
no,
stop.
George's was like a 9-second pit stop in the beginning. Wow. It was just it didn't look very smooth
together either.
No. You've got Stroll retire in the car. right? Which Stroll ended up getting a penalty. And so he served the penalty, and then he went back out, and then he retired the car, right?
Dude, they did that just because he was going to finish last. He was
definitely going to finish last.
He was going to finish last.
But I can't even get into that whole thing.
Are we going to talk about your favorite driver on this episode today?
Sergio, retired.
Oh yeah. The car. Well, he comes out on hard, spins the car, tries to blame it on the car.
I don't know what happened, because the announcer said that there was a power issue and that he got hit. And then when they went back and rewatched it, it doesn't look like he got hit by anybody.
There's no one around him.
It looks like the tires weren't warm, and he just pinned it in the corner and just whoop.
Yep. I think that's exactly what happened. At least everything I saw, I never saw anything that showed another car hit him. I didn't see that.
The funny thing was, when he spun around, he was kind of aiming for the gravel, and you could hear his car almost like sputtering.
Yeah.
And he just kept driving into the gravel, pulled a Stroll, drove right in there.
Yeah. There was a lot that happened in this race.
A lot to unfold. Unbelievable.
A lot to unpack.
I can't believe so much happened. So we have one race left.
I know it.
One race left in Qatar, right? Now, I will say it is December. And so, we'll have one race left, and then the season starts back up in March. I know it feels like a really long time. It's not terribly long.
It's a long time.
But we've got all kinds of news, right? So there's a chance that Ocon will not be racing in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, I saw that. And is it? I didn't understand why. Did they explain why?
It sounds like Mick Doohan is going to be racing in Abu Dhabi just because they want to give him some seat time.
That's crazy, man. To give up a whole race for a driver to just let somebody else get seat time. But
okay, so I know we need to wrap this episode up. We need to talk about Abu Dhabi, but can we just take a step back and address the hoodie you're wearing?
Yeah,
which is, I don't know what's going on, man. Hamilton came out in the post race after qualifying, and was like, I just don't have it in me. I'm not fast. I can't qualify. George looks great. I hope he gains a lot of points. I'm no good.
It was really, he's at a low point right now, I would say.
I honestly believe he is just frustrated with his position and how things are going. We all know that he's a phenomenal driver. We all know that he is he's a seven-time world champion. For God's sakes, right? So let's be honest. I mean, the guy can drive.
Yes.
I think he's just in a funk at the moment, and I feel bad for him. And he got on the radio and said, because he was on the radio the whole time, he said, guys, car's too slow.
Retire the car.
I'm having a terrible time.
Begging them to retire the car.
Well, and the funny thing was, he was trying to get them to retire the car. They told him no, and then they told him to retire the car.
And he kept going. I thought that was weird too. I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
He got his wish and then didn't.
So then I was listening to somebody yesterday, or maybe it was today, and they were saying that there was talk that he wasn't even going to be in the Qatar race, and now there's discussion that he won't even be in Abu Dhabi.
Really?
Because he's not interested in finishing out the year with Mercedes. And
I will say they've already given him like the key to the castle at Ferrari.
Oh, 100%. They've given him the key. Yeah, they've given him the key to the house in Manila. Yeah.
And you gotta wonder if that's playing like a weird thing with him, because Mercedes is probably like, hey, we're not giving you the information you want. Like, I know you want this, you're not getting it.
They probably are stonewalling him a little bit. I will tell you, I'm a little sad that Bono is not going with him.
Yeah.
I know
that's crazy to me. I've never seen, I didn't like it when his trainer left him, or he left his trainer. Remember that? What's her name?
I wasn't really his trainer.
What was her position? Anyways, it was like she did everything for him.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she left right at the end of, or the beginning of this year, right?
Yeah, I think it was beginning of this year.
Yeah, beginning of this year. And then
this year's been so long, man.
No, man. It feels like 2 years. but then it's been like downhill for him since. It seems like. And then now
I mean,
Bono's not going with him. That's crazy.
But it was kind of interesting because there was a lot of questions about like, what is she to him and do they have a relationship and all this stuff? And I think
married.
She is married.
Yeah, she's married.
And to be honest with you, they were just friends, and they confided in each other. She was kind of like an emotional support coach for him to an extent.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that noise was not helpful too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's
for
all
either
it was.
one of them, I'm sure.
But that's all it was noise. It wasn't. None of the stuff people were saying were real.
Yeah.
But
you get that in Formula One, man.
But with all that being said, I think it would be a huge mistake for him. He's been with Mercedes for so long.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a huge mistake for him not to finish out the year with them.
Yep.
And not for them to hopefully
do a big
Mercedes and F1 in general.
Yep.
Celebrate him the way he deserves to be celebrated at the end of this year.
I agree 100%.
I'm hoping that that's the case. I'm hoping it's not a like, hey, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Have fun over at Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, you got one more race, and then next year is going to look way different. And then 2026 is going to be ridiculously different. So here's the question: do we feel like next year is just going to be like a filler year?
Do not hope not. Because the last year of the last car was epic, right? That was 21.
And I'm hoping 25 will be epic too, right?
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
But you've got Audi coming in, you've got we didn't even talk about the 11th team on the grid. You've got Cadillac coming into the
can't wait for them to release their supercar, baby. Let's go.
Oh, those
it's gonna be cool.
The door wedges. They're gonna design all their cars like door wedges. It's gonna be awesome.
Can't wait.
So
bring back the XLR. This time make it a C8 ZR1. You know what I mean? That'd be a sick car.
It'd be great. But yeah, there's so many things that are going to happen in the next 2 years. Yeah. So for those of you who are just joining F1, for those of you who are just getting into F1, thank you for stumbling upon our channel. First of all, I think that's amazing.
Welcome to the fun.
Yeah, but more importantly, you're in for a ride. The next 2 years are going to be absolutely insane. There's no other way to describe it.
I'm super excited. I'm pumped.
Yeah.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good, man.
So with any luck, Stroll will find his true calling and go be a tennis player somewhere or a golfer somewhere.
Something.
Here's the thing, and I had this conversation.
We say this every episode.
We will, but we'll kind of end on this, right? So here's the thing is I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and we were talking about Stroll, and he doesn't even look happy to be like when they're doing interviews, he doesn't even look happy to be there. He looks miserable to be there,
Yeah.
The thing is, Stroll's dad, Lawrence Stroll, if it wasn't for Lawrence, there wouldn't be an Aston Martin team.
Oh, you're right.
Because prior to Lawrence, right, you had Racing Point, and
Aston
Martin was sponsoring. They were a title sponsor on the Red Bull team.
On the Red Bull car,
right? Yeah. In fact, I think you do have some gear that says Aston Martin Red Bull.
Aston Martin Red Bull Racing. Yep. That's what got me into the sport. I love Red Bull. That's my drink of choice. And I love Aston Martin. That's my car of choice. So it was the perfect merger for me. And I was like, yes. So
with that being said, right? We wouldn't have an Aston Martin team. There wouldn't be a Aston Martin Racing or British Racing green car on the grid if it wasn't for him. Adrian Newey wouldn't be on the Aston Martin team.
Yeah.
Right? Honda wouldn't still be in the sport if it wasn't for him.
That's correct.
That DB12 that our friend just purchased, my car, Aston Martin Vantage, would not be a thing if it was not for Lawrence Stroll. And I cannot thank him enough for all he's done, not just for the sport, not just for the fan base. They just signed a sponsorship deal with Puma. So I'm about to be broke. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But
that's
everything that they've done for the sport, for the there you go. See,
this is Puma. So
everything they've done for the sport, everything they've done for the brand,
Yeah.
The cars that are coming out, the cars that you're seeing on our channel, the cars that you're seeing, that are like the unobtainium, right?
Yes.
Like the Valkyrie.
Yes.
That's all thanks to Lawrence Stroll.
Yes, sir.
That new facility that they built in Silverstone, that multi-billion-dollar building.
Yeah.
That's all thanks to Lawrence Stroll. And I got to be honest with you, if it wasn't for him being on, being part of it and wanting to be a part of F1, we wouldn't have any of that, right?
Well, the other part too is Aston Martin may have went defunct if it wasn't for Lawrence Stroll as a company.
Yep.
Just to think about how much power this guy's got, man. It's unreal. And
how much influence he's had.
Absolutely.
And if you look at the events, the launch events that they've got, look how swanky those things are. That's all Lawrence Stroll, because he came from the fashion industry.
He's
right.
Him and his $3.8 billion that he's worth. Oh my gosh.
But now here we are.
Yeah.
Now here we are, and we've got his son in the sport. And the thing is, my biggest fear is that they finally come to terms with the fact that he is not on the same level as the other 19 drivers on that grid.
Yep.
And he does not need to be there, or maybe he just flat out doesn't want to be there, whatever the case may be.
And then Lawrence leaves with him.
And what does that mean for Aston Martin as a brand? What does that mean for Aston Martin as a team?
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Because
if you left Alonso on the team, and you brought in like an Ollie Behrman,
or one of the young guys,
that's what I'm saying, like an Ollie Behrman, like that team would be phenomenal.
Yep.
You'd have like a situation where you've got, especially with Adrian Newey coming on.
Well, even if
his cars have won like a quarter of all the titles ever,
right? But here's one of my thoughts too: is maybe not have Lance as a driver, maybe as a an administrative person in the team, right? I mean,
that's hard.
I would rather have that than have him out there just spinning the car, last in the points,
throwing it into other cars,
and all that stuff. I mean, maybe have him as an administrator on the team or something like that. I don't know what role would fit him best, but honestly, I would hate to see Lawrence leave. I'm sure you would too. And
I'd be devastated to see Lawrence leave.
And they've got DB for like DB9, DB11, DB12, right? That stands for David Brown. I'm wondering if we're ever going to get an LS option. You know what I mean? Like Lance, a Lawrence Stroll, number one. Hey, you never know.
LS1. No, you can't have an LS1.
That's LS1.
That's taken.
They've already used
no LS7 either. That one's taken.
Or just the Stroll edition.
Right.
But yeah,
I don't know. I mean, we'll see. But again, I think this season's really good. I think this season was exciting to finish. We've got one more race to go, and then next season is going to be interesting. So we'll have to see what happens. But as we always said, if you have made it this far in the video, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for finding us. Thank you for watching. And please, if you haven't done it already, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and please comment.
Yes. Comment below. Let us know if you love this and what we should talk about next. So
ask John where he got his hoodie, and then that way we can all order him.
Puma outlet. It was a Christmas gift. So thanks, babe. That was our F1 analyst that got me this.
There you go. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon, and see you later.
Peace out. See y'all next time. Thanks.